Well, shortly after daughter number 3 was born, Tiffany and I started asking ourselves that natural next question: are we done? Like, is that it? And certainly right after, it's like, well, we started to realize we used to be able to kind of take one in one hand and the other in the other hand, and now there's a third, so now we have to figure out how to play zone defense, and just be like, maybe this is it. Like, we're kind of good here. But we didn't want to make any kind of, rash decisions and in that moment or early moment. So we spent about a year praying about it. And after about a year, we consistently felt the same message was being received from both of us. And as we would pray about it together, that, yeah, you guys are done. You've got your 3 kids. It's time to put a stop to this. And so made a phone call, called the clinic, schedule a procedure to put a stop to things. And when we did that, and about a year after that, interestingly enough, both of us start to sense something going on within our spirit going, your family's not done yet. There's still room for another one. And so now we're looking at each other going, well, how does this work? we kind of tied things off on that regard, so I think we're kind of done with that. So that led us down a track where we had to figure that out, because I think naturally, if we started having that and we had not done a procedure, it would have been like, oh, okay, we know how to do this. Let's figure this thing out. But having some finality in that regard led us to start pursuing a track of going in adoption. About a year after that stirring, we were able to bring daughter number 4 home. As I look back on that now, it's very plain to me to say that was God's plan for us. And that was His purpose. That the whole getting a procedure done, going through that idea of going to Him and wrestling with this and really feeling like, no, you guys are done. And that's all a part of the preparation that God had for us to ultimately fulfill His purpose for our lives. And as we read this story of Daniel, as we approach chapter 10 today, I see some similarities in the fact that God prepares us for His purpose. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. Daniel has a purpose. Each and every one of us has a purpose. And I think Daniel 10 is going to give us some insight in how do we understand that purpose. Daniel 10, verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar. And the message was true and one of great conflict. But he understood the message and had an understanding of the vision. This verse is setting the stage for what's to come in the next 3 chapters. Chapter 10, 11, and 12 is all one final vision that Daniel is going to be able to write. However, the vision doesn't come until chapters 11 and 12. So we get chapter 10 that's all about preparing Daniel for what's to come. Preparing Daniel for his purpose. Chapter 10 and verse 2 goes on. Now Daniel starts speaking. In those days, I, Daniel, had been mourning for 3 entire weeks. I did not eat any tasty food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth. Nor did I use any ointment at all until the entire 3 weeks were completed. And see, as we find out that we're in the 3rd year of Cyrus's reign, we can do some history checking, and also through the book of Ezra, we find out that in the 1st year of Ezra's reign, Ezra gave a proclamation allowing the Jewish exiles to enter Jerusalem once again. And now after 70 years of being exiled, Daniel being one of them, with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that we heard about them earlier in this study, they've been gone 70 years. And so now we have Daniel in his 80s, and they've been allowing the exiled Israelites to enter back into Jerusalem. Well, the problem came a couple years after that. So they came in, they started rebuilding the temple. There was excitement going on. They were able to worship together once again until opposition hit in form of the Samaritans. And the Samaritans were opposing them, and it ultimately put a halt to rebuilding the temple, rebuilding their worship sanctuary. And Daniel gets word of that. And Daniel starts to mourn and grieve. So 21 days into it, here's Daniel mourning and grieving. What he's feeling was just this high to high, and now he's in this depths of the low. And this prayer sets off what we're going to find out is how God is preparing him for his purpose. And there's 4 ways that God prepares us for the purpose. The first one is that Jesus shows up. In verse 4 through 9, Jesus shows up to Daniel. On the 24th day of the first month, while I was by the bank of the great river that is the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a certain man dressed in linen, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl. His face had the appearance of lightning. His eyes were like flaming torches. His arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze. And the sound of his words like the sound of a tumult. And now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, while the men who were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, yet no strength was left in me, for my natural color turned to a deathly pallor, and I retained no strength. But I heard the sound of his words, and as soon as I heard the sound of his words, I fell into a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. Jesus shows up in Daniel's life. And you might even have read that along with me or heard that, and you're like, Jesus shows up. How are you able to say that? How are you able to make the claim that that's Jesus right there? I make the claim because of a connection that I can read in Revelation chapter 1. So in the book of Revelation, the Apostle John gets a vision from Jesus as laying out what's to come. He's going to give us this big prophetic vision of end times. And Jesus comes to him then, and let's read about the similarities. Revelation 1, verse 12. Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me. And having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the middle of the lampstands, I saw one like a son of man, a term that's often used in the Old Testament to reference Jesus, clothed in a robe reaching to the feet and girded across his chest with a golden sash. His head and his hair were white like wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, when it has been made to glow in a furnace. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. His right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp 2-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in his strength. When I saw him, I fell at his feet like a dead man. The similarities in look, the similarities in reaction play out into how Jesus came to John and how Jesus came to Daniel. Let's check them out just side by side to bring a little bit more clarity to these. Daniel says, I lifted my eyes and I looked. And John says, then I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me. And he describes what he looked like. There was a certain man dressed in linen. It's like a son of man, clothed in a robe. And then we talk about the gold, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold, and girded across his chest a golden sash. And his face had the appearance of lightning. His face was like the sun shining in its strength. We get to see these similarities. These men are different spots, different locations, different times, and yet they see a similar thing, and then they record what is very similar. His face had the appearance, and his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze. His feet were like burnished bronze. The sound of his words like a tumult. His voice like the sound of many waters, waves rushing by. And then the response that both of them have. Daniel says, I fell into a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. And as John wrote, when I saw Jesus, I fell at his feet like a dead man. When Jesus shows up in our lives, we have an instant shookness about us. And that it's going to shake our world. It's going to devastate us. We're going to have these just immaculate vision. We're going to come down on our face. He's going to come in many ways, in different ways, not just like this, but he's going to come in ways that we may feel are different. Comes through a person who says the right thing at the right time. Comes through prayer and speaking to us. Comes through his word and sharing who he is with us. And when he does, it rocks us. And it doesn't just rock us, it rocks others. Verse 7 says, now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. while the men who were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. You ever notice that if we once lived a certain way, and then we come to know the Lord and things start changing in our lives, so do the people in our lives? I think that's by design. It's by Jesus' design to help us complete our purpose in this life. And now sometimes that happens on its own, but sometimes that choice is up to ours. It's up to us. There's a kind of a line that I use oftentimes with our students on Wednesday nights. It's ultimately taken from a business sense, but it goes something along this line. You want to know your future? Look at your friends. You want to see what's in your future? Who are the 5 people that you hang out with the most? That's what you're going to become. That's what becomes your norm. That's what becomes your average. And so as much as I'd like to think it can stop with them, with our teens growing up, but it's with all of us. We want to see our future? Who are we spending time with? And so sometimes the change happens in our lives and others are going to distance themselves. And there's other times that we need to distance ourselves. Because if Jesus shows up in our lives to give us a purpose, then we need to be able to lean into that. And that may include who and what we're spending our time with and on. Jesus shows up in our lives, and when he does, he gives us a purpose. Daniel 10:10 goes on. It says, "Then behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees." Now let me come out and say, this is now an angel that is coming to Daniel. He's been sent. He said to me, "O Daniel, man of high esteem, understand the words that I'm about to tell you and stand upright, for I have now been sent to you." And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, "Do not be afraid, Daniel. For from the first day that you set your heart on understanding this and humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard. And I have come in response to your words." 21 days ago, Daniel, when you started fasting and praying, your words were heard. Your prayers were heard. And he's coming in response to that. "But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days." Now this prince isn't an earthly prince. Now we're talking about spiritual battles. And this is a demon who is withstanding this angel. "Then, behold, Michael, the archangel Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I have been left there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days," this prophecy of things to come, "for the vision pertains to the days yet future." When Jesus shows up in our lives, he gives us a purpose. And he gave Daniel a purpose in verse 14. He said, "I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people." You're a prophet. I'm going to give you a vision. Here is your purpose. At our local mission trip this summer, we had a group of us who one of the days spent some time at a local food bank. And oftentimes we had a group cleaning up an area, and we had groups moving different boxes around and sorting. And then it came to be part of the afternoon where me and 2 of our young men were sorting and putting stuff on trucks and getting ready to deliver. And you can kind of see like we're kind of in this middle section, and off to the side there comes a mom and her 2 little kids. And so there's one volunteer from the food shelter with us, and he kind of went over and met with the mom and the daughter and the son. And you can tell they're kind of talking and kind of trying to lend my ear there. And there's communication issues because he's speaking English and they're speaking Spanish, and there's not much of an overlap there that they're being able to understand each other. And then I see they go outside and kind of around the building. And the 3 of us, me and his 2 guys, were kind of talking about it. And so every now and then all 3 of us were kind of looking. And I think they started asking questions like, "What do you think's going to happen? What's going on there?" I'm like, "I don't know. I couldn't really tell. I mean, obviously they're coming in for food, right?" And the boys were like, "Yeah, but why'd they go out there?" Like, it seemed like he wasn't really receptive to them coming in. And I think one of them said, like, "Yeah, it's not normal hours. Like, so we are here volunteering, but the times that people can come in to get food, that's already passed." So we kind of keep on loading, and we're kind of looking what's going on, and can kind of keep moving and seeing them outside, and you can tell like they're stirring, and something's going on with us, and they kind of look at me like, what do we do? I'm like, I don't know. Let's just go over there and figure out what's going on and see if there's any way we can help. So we started walking over, and we finally went out there and understood there's a language barrier going on, and so I'm pulling out the old Google Translate and trying to use that and a couple of the things that I know, and these guys have had a couple of years, and so they're talking and just trying to make a connection with this mom and these two little ones, and so he's showing them the sign of the hours, and he's just kind of like just wrestling with stuff, and so I kind of step in and lean in, and I'm like, what's going on here? He's like, well, I'm trying to get them to understand, like, we can't give them any food right now because the hours are past, so they can come back tomorrow, and here's the time frame to come back tomorrow. And I said, okay. I'm a little naive, but it's open. Can we just go get them food now? He's like, no, we've got certain hours. I can get in trouble for doing stuff like that. So then in my unfiltered brain, when sometimes things just come out, I'm like, well, how about you get lost for a while and I'll get in trouble for it? And he kind of looks down and shakes his head and looks up at me, and I'm kind of like, kind of serious, like I can get in trouble. And the guys are still having this conversation and talking to the kids at the time, and finally he's just kind of starts pacing, and he's looking, he's like, all right, we can go, but we got to go quick because if somebody comes back, I'm going to get in trouble. So I'm like, all right, boys, grab a box. Let's go. We're off. And so, like, we're grabbing the little ones, and the little girl can do some translating, and we're filling up this box, and we're trying to ask them what they like, what they need, and that kind of thing. And pretty soon these boxes are getting kind of heavy, and there's obviously they're fit guys who are struggling to carry this thing. I'm looking at these two little ones and a mom, and kind of like, you have a car? Mm-mm. Yeah, I didn't think so. Where do you live? Down there ways. Okay. Look at the boys, and they're kind of like, we got this. I thought so. So they took the boxes and carried the food and brought it over there, and a little while later, they came back, and they said, we went upstairs into the apartment, and we were just like, hey, we can help you unload it. And so we opened the fridge, and said, I'm saying this quite literally, the only thing in the fridge were a couple tortilla shells. That was it. And I think that's what they had in the entire place. Like, wow. He said, yeah, I'm not sure that family would have eaten had we not been there today. It's like, I'm like, I think you might be right. And in that conversation, I think they're like, I think this was our purpose today. And this was why we were here. This is why we went out there and had a conversation, to be able to give food to a family. Just talking to that volunteer a little bit later on, and I could tell he was still wrestling with it. The guy is a rule follower, and he said to me in all seriousness, he said, hey, do you think I'm going to hell for that? I disobeyed my boss. I wasn't supposed to do that. And that's one of those where, say a quick prayer, and God, can you give me something? So I said, honestly, I think it's quite the opposite. I don't think Jesus is mad at you right now. Actually, I think he's proud of you, because he says, feed my sheep and feed my people. And you just did that. So I think actually he's probably smiling down on you right now. And if I continue, I'm like, and this is why you got into this volunteering position, isn't it? Because you want to feed people. You just did your job. You just served your purpose. It's what you're supposed to do. So no, I think he's happy with you. He still was wrestling with it. Still was struggling with it. And I've prayed for him since then, hoping that he understands as well that we don't have a God who's judging based on these rules. We have a God who judges based on his rules. And they go to loving him and loving people before they go to anything else. So we have a purpose in life. And maybe it's for an afternoon, and maybe that afternoon purpose fits into a bigger scheme of things. But we do have a purpose. You would think, I would think, once we kind of have a clear purpose in life, once we know what our role is, we could be confident in that. I would think, looking at Daniel, he's a prophet. He's done this his whole life. He's now been doing this for, he's in his 80s, and he's been doing this for decades. So I'm thinking he's a pretty confident guy. And I'm thinking, you've had visions before and been able to share things that people don't understand. And you're one who's gotten exiled. You've been exiled from your homeland. You're in a foreign country, and you become a leader in that country. You're somebody who got persecuted. You got thrown into a hungry lion's den, and by morning you turn around and you're petting the kitties in there. And this is who you are, and this is what your life has been all about. And then I read verses 15 through 17, and I'm like, man, I love Daniel even more now. Because he's like me. He's like us. Daniel says, when he had spoken to me according to these words, when Daniel had received his purpose, he said, I turned my face toward the ground and became speechless. And behold, one who resembled a human being was touching my lips. And then I opened my mouth and spoke and said to him who was standing before me, Oh, my Lord. And this is a sign of respect, a term of respect, not a sign of Lord Jesus. He says, Oh, my Lord, as a result of the vision, anguish has come upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can such a servant of my Lord talk with such as my Lord? As for me, there remains just now no strength in me, nor has any breath been left in me. Daniel's struggling. Daniel is absolutely struggling. He feels weak. He feels like he doesn't have breath. He feels ill-equipped. He doesn't have the confidence going on. And this is the point where I'm like, man, I get this. I get you, Daniel. Because there's times that we can easily understand, like, I've got a purpose for my life, and we can get all set to go, and then we get this sense of, but I don't know if I can do it. And so insert Jesus in our lives. Insert the one who gave us the purpose. Because if he shows up and he gives us the purpose, he gives us the ability. Jesus gives us the ability. Then this one with human appearance touched me again and strengthened me. He said, O man of high esteem. You were questioning who you were and whose you were? Let me remind you who God says you are. O man, O woman of high esteem. He says, do not be afraid. Peace be with you. And when the statement, peace be with you, is at a start of a sentence or a start of a greeting, it's like a formal greeting. But when it's in the middle, it's telling him, you are safe. Daniel, do not be afraid, for you are safe. Take courage and be courageous. Another way to say this, be strong. Like, you've got this. Now, as soon as he spoke to me, I received strength and said, may my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Let me just highlight that part. Because here's where we can get in our own sense of like, oh, this is up to me. I don't feel strong enough. I don't feel like I've got the breath. I don't feel like I've been equipped enough. I don't have. But here it's not about us. You have strengthened me. You have given me the ability that I need. It's not up to us. It's up to Jesus. He's given us all that we can have, all that we need. And the problem is we deal with this comparison thing in our world. And now, no doubt, we all understand what social media does. And it's had negative impacts, especially on our teens and our young adults. Because ultimately what they do now is they go in and see what everybody's perfect life, because we only post these good things typically, and even now they got these filtered photos, so if you've got any smudge or something, you just doctor it up and then you post it and you look brilliant and amazing and beautiful. And so now we go through these feeds and we see all these beautiful things happening with all these people, and then you're like, well, what about me? I'm not that good looking. I'm not that talented. I'm not that skilled. I'm not that gifted. I don't have the perfect family. I don't have this. And so like that happens right now. That is an epidemic in our young people of this comparison thing. But it doesn't just stop at our young folks. Because I can look back at Moses. And I look at the story of Moses. And God says, you're my leader. You are my guy who's going to rescue my people out of slavery in Egypt. And Moses is like, I don't know if I can do that. You know, how are they going to believe me? How are they going to trust me? God's like, see your staff? Throw it on the ground. Throws it on the ground, it becomes a snake. Okay, grab it by the tail. Grabs it by the tail, it's a staff again. He goes, I will give you the power. I will give you the authority. They will trust you. The staff thing's kind of cool, but I still don't know. And so he's like, all right, reach your hand inside your shirt. Pull it out. Perfectly white. Reach it in again. Back to normal. Well, that's a cool trick. You think that's enough for you, Moses? That's kind of cool, but, I'm not very eloquent. I'm not a really good speaker. I don't come up with words very well. God responds to him, you don't have to. Your brother Aaron, he's a speaker, and he's already on his way to meet you. You don't have to do anything outside of the role you have to play. It's like he's telling Moses, he's like, your gifting is enough. I've given you a purpose already, and I'm going to give you the ability you need to do your purpose. Quit comparing yourself to everybody else. Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy in himself, he had a great quote. It talked about this idea of comparing ourselves to others. It said, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. If we've been made to be a fish, let us swim. If we've been made to be a monkey, then climb a tree. And let us continue to walk in that purpose that God has made us, not comparing ourselves to others and not comparing others to others, but being the best version of ourselves that we can be. There's this saying that says, Jesus doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. I love that line because we can look at one another and be like, he's not looking for the perfect person. He's just looking for us. He doesn't look for the brightest, the smartest, the strongest, whatever it is. He just says, here's what I want from you. Here's your purpose. And when you start to struggle thinking, I don't have the ability, all you got to do is look up and say, but you've given me everything I possibly need to fulfill the purpose that you've given me in my life. He's given us all we need. So many of us have had Jesus show up in our lives. Many of us have had him give us a purpose. But I wonder if this is the point where we get stuck. Because we start to compare, we start to look at others, and we start to wonder if we're good enough. Do I have the breath to do this? Do I have the strength to do this? I don't feel like I do. And so maybe this is the opportunity to say, Jesus, you've shown up in my life. You've given me a purpose, and I've been waiting. I've been feeling insecure. Maybe now is the time I need to turn that over to you and just trust that you're going to give me everything I possibly need to fulfill that purpose. Because if he's going to show up and give you a purpose, he's going to give you the ability. And lastly, after he gives you the ability, Jesus is going to give us the plan. He's going to tell us specifically what we need to do as well. Verse 20 and 21. Then he said, this is the angel speaking, then he said, do you understand why I came to you? But I shall now return to fight against the prince of Persia. So I'm going forth, and behold, the prince of Greece is about to come. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in the writing of truth. Yet there is no one who stands firmly with me against these forces except Michael, your prince. That your being plural, the prince of Israel. But I love how he tells them right here, I will tell you what is inscribed in the writing of truth. I will give you all you need. I'm going to give you the game plan that God's already written, and your job is to share that with other people. Your job is to write it down. Your job is to tell people that's your purpose. I'm going to give you the plan. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to take daughter number 2, Cambria, to the Packer game, the preseason game. It was a blast, explaining in way more detail than I think I've explained in a long time, the game of football, and even from the idea of that's 5 yards, that's 10, 10's a first down. I mean, we're going into everything and just going back to the square or the basics on this. And it was kind of a cool part in this game where coming to our side, we had a kind of a 2-minute offense was going on, winding down into half, and the Packers were driving, and all of a sudden they start going into their no-huddle offense. So it's getting sped up. And they're getting on a line, and you see the quarterback kind of yell a play, and said, hut, and they're off and running, and back on the line, and they're going, and it's hitting a tempo, and I'm kind of explaining things to Cammie, and I'm like, see how cool this is? Watch what's happening. See the quarterback there, and how he just looks that way and looks that way. What he's doing is yelling the play to them, and then he says, hut, and they take off. So now check over there, right about the 50-yard line or so, there's the coach. the coach is wearing a headphone or a headpiece, kind of like this one. He's telling the quarterback to play. The quarterback inside his helmet has speakers. So he's looking over. Sometimes he's like kind of reading lips probably, but he's getting to play in here. Got to play. Tell that side to play. Tell that side to play. Let's go. We're off and running. Play goes down. Fast forward mode. Listens. Yeah. Here's the play. Here's the play. Let's go. Like, we're the quarterback. Daniel's the quarterback. God is giving us the plan. He's giving us the play. When Jesus shows up in our lives, gives us a purpose, and gives us the ability, he's going to give us the plan if we're willing to hear it. And so there's quarterback Daniel. He's like, okay, you're going to tell me everything I need to know? Okay. Ready, go. Here's the play. Here's the play. And now let's go and execute. And so here's all of us. Jesus has shown up. He's given us a purpose. He's given us the ability, whether we trust that or not. And now he's going to give us the plan. And so now we listen and we go and execute. Because that's our role. I love the final words. One of the final words that the angel says in verse 20. He asked Daniel, it's a rhetorical question for him. I'm going to say it's not a rhetorical one for us. Do you understand why I came to you? Daniel asked him, do you understand your purpose? Or Daniel's asked, do you understand your purpose here? It's back up in 14. He said, I've come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people. You're a prophet. I've given you a vision. I'm going to give you a vision. Do you understand why I've come? Do you understand your job? Do you understand your purpose? And if we're calling ourselves Christians, if we're followers of Christ, he has shown up in our lives. And he wants to give us a purpose. He's going to give us everything we possibly need to succeed. He's going to give us the abilities, and he's given us the plan. So now as we leave here, we have one question to consider. Do you understand why Jesus came to you? Do we understand the purpose he has put in our hearts? Father, we ask for your help in understanding what our purpose is. Sometimes I think it comes through loud and clear, and other times it's just a faint voice or something that we just try to wrestle with. So, Father, as we sit here today, as we leave here today, help us to understand how you have uniquely wired us and what kind of a purpose you have designed for our lives that can bring glory to you and make an eternal impact. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I love it how God has worked out and orchestrated this morning. Like I said at the beginning, kind of a spoiler alert, it's all about the hope in whom our hope is. And as we were picking out songs, this last song that we're going to sing is a little bit newer, but it's super simple, and I love the words of it because it draws us back to who is our strength. And it reminded me of about a month ago, as many of you know, I am a mother of 4 very busy boys. And God has entrusted them to me, but the thing that I'm finding is that I learn so much through them and through their trials and whatnot. And I love that how Pastor Brian talked about how, God shows up in the middle of our trials, and we seek him. And so about a month ago, one of my boys was just having a rough night. And, sometimes, they're just stalling because they're like, I'm thirsty for the 3rd time and I have to go to the bathroom, all of these things. And it's just they're delaying the inevitable of bedtime. But there was something different. And so I just kind of sat down with my son and I said, what, buddy, what's going on? And he's like, Mom, I'm just afraid. My room is dark and I see the shadows everywhere. And I just feel like if I just trusted God more, I wouldn't be scared. And I thought, wow, how many times are we like that? If I just did this would be better. If I was just a little bit stronger, then this problem wouldn't happen. Or if I just trusted God more, then I wouldn't be scared. But God promises to be with us even in those scary times. And the cool thing was to watch my son realize that God had a purpose for him, that even in his fear, he could still learn to trust him. And so this song, I love the chorus of it. It says, you are stronger, sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all. He's Lord of all, and it's all about him. It's not about our strength. It's all about his strength and him, as Brian said, that he gives us his strength. It's not about the stuff that we can muster ourselves. It's about God's ability to equip us with what we need. So if you would stand with us again, and we are going to sing this last song.
Faithfulness none can deny. Through the storm and through the fire, there is truth that sets me free. Jesus Christ, who lives in me. You are stronger, you are stronger. Sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all. No beginning and no end. You're my hope and my defense. You came to seek and save the lost. You paid it all upon the cross. You are stronger, you are stronger. Sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all.
So let your name be lifted higher, be lifted higher, be lifted higher. So let your name be lifted higher, be lifted higher, be lifted higher. So let your name be lifted higher, be lifted higher, be lifted higher. So let your name be lifted higher, be lifted higher, be lifted higher. You are stronger, you are stronger. Sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all. You are stronger, you are stronger. Sin is broken, you have saved me. It is written, Christ is risen. Jesus, you are Lord of all.
Jesus, you are Lord of all. Jesus, you are Lord of all.
Amen. Hey, out of the mouths of babes, right? If we could just trust more, if we could trust that God has given us a purpose, that he's given everything we need to fulfill it, we can walk out with that kind of a confidence today and enter our harvest ready to reap and sow for him. May that be our battle cry as we leave here. May God bless each and every one of you.
I thought that I could recover from the turns out that I'm falling under all the doubt, all the lies, and the shame. But Lord, your help is never far from me. So I let go of my pride and find all I need. In my hurt and I find hope. In my healing I'm made whole. In my weakness I'm strong in you. When it's storming I find peace. Oh Lord, it's all I need. In my weakness I'm strong in you. Ooh, 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 I'm strong in you. Don't know the end of the story, but I'm sure you go before me and provide. When I'm tired, I fall into you. When I'm broken, it's your holiness I find. In my hurt and I find hope. In my healing I'm made whole. In my weakness I'm strong in you. When it's storming I find peace. Oh Lord, it's all I need. In my weakness I'm strong in you. Ooh, 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 I'm strong in you. Strong in you. Lord, you are the promise I hold on to. In my hurt and I find hope. In my healing I'm made whole. In my weakness I'm strong in you. When it's storming I find peace. Oh Lord, it's all I need. In my weakness I'm strong in you. Ooh, 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 I'm strong in you. Ooh, 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 I'm strong in you. I'm strong in you.
Before you were born, you were known. When no one was around, you were not alone. You were knit together with deliberate hands. You were planned. Before you were formed, you were seen. Your eyes and your hair and your destiny. Imagined with a purpose you don't yet understand. You were planned. You were planned. So don't ever think that you're
his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you, he is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, he is for you. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you, he is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, he is for you. Jesus is for you. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
You're not surprised by anything I am facing. My doubts are not new. You've seen confusion before. You stood face to face with a man who did not recognize you. Though I feel the same, you've not walked away from me. When you speak, you silence the lies I've believed. You shatter the doubts in my mind me. You shatter the doubts and remind me you're still fighting for me. When you're breathing life back to me, restoring my heart to the beauty that brokenness brings. When you speak, what can be written for you? There's too much to say. Strength eternal, a peace I can't explain. So many ways you appear. In my hope, in my fear, in sacred prayers repeated for thousands of years. You are I sit alone by the sea, and I feel